What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Life's a Garden. Today's positive motivational message is roll with the punches. Sometimes in life, you find yourself in a situation or a scenario where you just keep getting beat down by life, or you just feel like you're not catching a break. You just keep getting punched in the face by life. In whatever scenario it might be. You just gotta roll with the punches sometimes. Rather than let life beat you down. Rather than submit to the constant disappointment. The constant failure. The constant downsides. Rather than submit to that and just accept it and feel sorry for yourself or feel down on yourself, feeling like it's never going to get better. Just keep on rolling with the punches. And eventually, them swings get lighter. Life gets a little tired. It can't keep up. We've gone 10 rounds. And exhaustion's setting in. And eventually, you'll catch that second wind. And you can start punching back. And it all works out. And you end up winning the fight in the end. Just roll with the punches. Push on through. Don't lay down. Don't lay down for that 10 count. Roll with the punches. Yeah, they can hurt sometimes. But if you keep moving forward, if you keep that energy up and you keep that chin up, it'll all work out in the end. And with that, let's roll on in. Let's roll these punches on in to today's episode. It's episode 219? 219, 18, something like that. We got a lot of episodes we've been doing here. It's 200 and something of Life's a Garden. That's right. Thank you. Thank you for joining me this week on Life's a Garden. If you have not yet, please like, share, subscribe, follow on all platforms. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts at. And if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and subscribe on all of those platforms, because it just helps that much more. If you're subscribed on YouTube, subscribe on Apple. If you're subscribed on Apple, subscribe on Spotify. Even if you don't listen to those on those platforms, it helps us out, It just helps boost the numbers a little bit. We appreciate that. Oh yeah, baby. I'm rolling with the punches. That's the message of the week, and I am doing that better than anybody. Because yet again, the Broncos don't look to be... It looks to be the same old when it comes to the Broncos as of the last, 8 years. 8 years! The Broncos have not made the playoffs since we won the Super Bowl. Our last playoff game, we won the Super Bowl. That's fucking insane, dude. And ever the optimist. Every single year, I'm always optimistic that we're going to figure it out. This will be the year that it starts to connect. It starts to click. It starts to move into a winning direction. And every year, I take another punch to the face. I've been rolling with these punches for 8 years. Almost a decade. With really zero sense of moving in the right direction. And I tell you what, I'm going to keep on rolling. Keep rolling. Keep rolling. Keep rolling. How many more years? How many more years do I got to keep rolling with this? Now, it is only week 2. I'm just basing it on what I've seen in these 2 weeks. In these 2 weeks, it just looks like the same shit. Can't convert on third down. Can't get first downs. It's like pulling teeth just to get a damn first down. Non-existent run game. O-line problems. Defense looks good, but the offense can't contribute. It feels like just the same story year after year. And again, it is only week 2. I'm not completely hitting the panic button yet. But we still got the Chiefs twice this year. The Chargers look good. We got to play them twice a year. Even the fucking Raiders won last week. Beat the Ravens. Now, I can say, I can hold my hat. I can hang my hat on the fact the Ravens are 0-2. The Rams are 0-2. The Bengals are 0-2. There are some good teams out there that are 0-2. Now, am I sitting here trying to put the Broncos in that group of teams? No. I'm just saying there's room for, there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time to make a statement, to get things going. And I'm still going to believe that time will come. But for right now, it only took 2 weeks for me to be a very discouraged Broncos fan. Again, based on what I've seen. Just based on the film, based on the games I've watched. It just doesn't look optimistic at the moment. Now, can they change my mind? Can they get things going and maybe it all turns around? Yes. But they gotta make some changes. They gotta do something different. In addition to that, being down in the sports world, our boy Sugar Sean O'Malley is no longer the UFC bantamweight champion of the world. Got completely outclassed in that fight. Apparently, he did have an injury going into the fight, his labrum. Now, I don't know where the labrum is. Is that in the back? Am I right about that? I'm not sure. Said something about a torn labrum or maybe a strained labrum. Either way, it turns out Sean's going to have surgery to repair whatever it is that is ailing him. And he will be out for a good, he said, 9 months to a year. Anywhere between 9 months and a year. Which sucks. And I hate if that's even being used as an excuse because, dude, Sean just didn't look. He had moments where he could have stepped up and tried to take over the fight, and he just didn't. He hurt him in the fifth round with those kicks to the gut, and then just didn't go for it. It's like, you're already losing on the scorecards. You should know that. Why not just go for it? This guy doesn't have knockout power. He's not going to finish you. So long as, you got to play it smart, obviously. But what's the worst thing that happens? He takes you down again? Guess what? He did. It didn't matter anyway. At least you could have gone for the kill. He basically just got ragdolled the whole fight, taken down, and that was the biggest worry I had, was the fact that he was the takedowns, the wrestling versus the striker. Those were some concerns I had going into this fight. I had hoped Sean would just get him either knocked out or, clip him pretty good in the first or second round and just put on the striking, set the tone with the striking right away. And that just never happened. All good, things like this happen, and you just got to hope that he can rebound and make his way back to the championship again. It's very rare for champions to maintain that that title hold for a long time. There's been very few that have held, defended that title more than 4 times at any given moment. The best of the best do it. Now, the UFC card as a whole, let's talk about that. Because the main event and the co-main event were very boring. By the way, I was correct in my prediction on Diego Lopez and on Valentina Shevchenko. Obviously, I was incorrect about Sean O'Malley, but you'll be relieved to know I did not, in fact, bet $100 on Sean. I put a $20 parlay down, and I just missed on the last one. But everything before that, everything before the main event and the co-main event, electricity. For it only being 10 fights on the card, because normally I think there's like 15, but because of production and all that stuff, they whittled it down to 10 fights. 8 of those 10 fights were just fantastic. The 3 fights on the main card, to start off the main card, all 3 fights were exquisite. Like, some of the best fights I've seen in a long time. And they all went the distance. All 3 of them went the distance. Just absolute. The first 2, it was back and forth. Like one guy would look like he was going to get the finish and then he didn't. And then it was just maybe going to get a submission. Nope, he gets out of the submission. It was phenomenal. It was just great night of fights, regardless of the outcome on the main event, regardless of the boringness of the co-main event and the main event. Still great. And the Sphere, dude, they did it. I didn't know what to expect. If you didn't see the pay-per-view, if you didn't see the main card, you didn't get to experience what they were doing with the Sphere. Because they kind of were changing some stuff up during the prelims, just to kind of show, just to give you a little taste. Everything they did during the main event, or the main card, was outstanding. I could only imagine what it would have been like to be there. They did a great job. Shout out to the UFC's production company. Shout out to whoever was in charge, or whoever helped put all that on. Because it went off without hitch. Dana White's out here saying that it's a one and done. They're never going to do it at the Sphere again. I call bullshit. I think the Sphere will be begging them to come back. I think after what we saw and after just everything, I'm not saying it's going to happen next year, but somewhere down the line, I guarantee they are going to have another event at the Sphere because of how epic it was. People are going to be wanting that again. And just imagine if they did like a 4th of July type theme, or if they did, for St. Patrick's Day, like a celebration of Irish fighting. You never know. Or it could just be a random card with a bunch of just random videography stuff going on. I don't know. But the stages where it looked like a straight up Mortal Kombat stage every single fight, they would switch to a different arena, like it looked like a different venue as the background. Phenomenal, dude. It reminded me of Mortal Kombat. It was so cool. And there's so much potential with that. So I think they just broke the doors down on the next thing for combat sports or sports in general. Oh, man. Let's see what else we got going on. P Diddy. P Diddy has been arraigned and arrested. I don't know the exact charges. I know it wasn't for the sexual assaults or misconducts or whatever it may have been. God, I wish I could remember what the actual charges were. They were kind of like minor charges just to like get him. But I imagine they're working on a bigger case. The biggest thing to come out of this, well, first of all, it seemed inevitable that this was going to happen, that he was going to get arrested and charged with what he was being accused of. there's so much to unpack here. First of all, they, during the raids on his home, they had, what's the word I'm looking for? Confiscated, I guess, or seized guns with serial numbers scratched out. That's not good. And I think that's one of the crimes. A lot, like drugs and stuff like that. And 1,000 bottles of lube. 1,000 bottles of lube. Now, reports say that Diddy would have these freak-off parties where, like, it was kind of like, you know, Eyes Wide Shut style, probably very sexually orgy style, drugs flowing, booze flowing. There's, like, in Hollywood, Diddy parties were, like, talked about in this. They were like notorious, right? His parties were notorious for being just wild and crazy. Also, there have been allegations that Diddy was doing some gaying. He was gaying out with some dudes. And there's been a lot of names been thrown around out there. I'm not going to say any of them because I don't want to besmirch anybody who may or may not have been involved in those things. Meek Mill. Meek Mill. I don't know anybody else, really. But there's been other names that have been thrown around. And I bet you'd be shocked to find out some of the ones that haven't been mentioned. Now, the lube would indicate that these alleged homosexual acts Diddy, in fact, take place. Because I don't know if you know anything about buttholes. I'm sure you do if you're listening, because you probably have one. But I don't know this from experience, so don't come after me about this. I'm just telling you what I can what I can only imagine, because I've been around some buttholes before. I've been around some other orifices, and I know it's a little bit more difficult to gain entrance on the Patrick Star. What do they call it? The chocolate star. It's a little bit harder to gain access to that. And so, in order to make that entrance a little bit more smooth, you require lube. So when you got 1,000 bottles of it, chances are there's some gay sex going on. And if it's at your house, odds are you're involved in using it. Whether it be on yourself or for others. And either way, gay. Gay. And hey, nothing wrong with being gay. And nothing wrong if Diddy's gay. But they don't want you to know that. Otherwise, they'd be out and proud. I've talked about this before. There's a weird stigma in the hip-hop and the black community about being gay. I don't understand it. I'm not part of the culture. Whatever it may be, there is somewhat of a stigma in there. And especially for these dudes who are like hip-hop, rap guys that are trying to act hard and trying to act gangster. Kind of hard. It's difficult to be hard or street and have some cred when you're hard inside of another dude. They just don't look at that as tough. They don't look at that as cool. They look at it as feminine and whatever. Whatever. I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing at this point. That's just the way it optically looks from the outside in. But Diddy has been arraigned. Yeah. Did he do it? Did he do it? We will see. We know he beat the shit out of his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend. And if a jury knows anything about that, even though that's dismissible, because dude, one thing that is just unbelievable in the justice system is, what's it called? Where evidence, or, what, fuck, it's on the tip of my tongue. Fuck. Where you can't, where something's been so long that it happened and you can't be tried for it. What's that called? Oh, dude, it's such on the tip of my tongue. Fuck. Statute of limitations. You got it. It took him forever, but he got it. And it is, in fact, statute, not statue of limitations. But statute of limitations is the dumbest thing in our political system. Now, I understand where you might have to have that back in the day when they didn't have DNA evidence or the technology to prove somebody's guilt. But now that we have, like, the DNA evidence to prove that, hey, this woman was in fact sexually assaulted by this guy, or hey, look, there's video evidence of this dude beating the shit out of his girlfriend in a hotel hallway. Get him! There's evidence and proof that he did it. Get him! Why does it have to be that, oh yeah, well, we see that he in fact did that. Unfortunately, it was 6 years ago, and the statute of limitations is 5 years. So we can't get him, even though we can see clearly that he did in fact do that. Huh? So anyway, the statute of limitations is up on that assault that he did on his ex, and if any jury members had a whiff of that, now the judge would have to say, this is inadmissible to this trial. Try telling that to a jury. Jury's going to convict. No matter, like, when they know that shit happened, fuck statute of limitations. They're coming after your ass. It's going to be in their head. Now, does that charge apply to the sentencing? No. But you best assure it's going to play it's going to have a place in the decision making. It's going to play a part in the decision making. Buddy. Booty, what a booty. Good old Diddy. The diddler. The Diddy Do Diddler. Riddle me this. Diddle me this. Diddy the... Oh, Diddy. Diddy. Let's see what else. They tried to get him again. Tried to get the old Trumpster again. A presumed assassination attempt. No shots were in fact fired, apparently. They said shots were fired, but from what I understand, there weren't in fact actual shots fired. But there was a gunman outside Donald Trump's private golf course in Florida with a assault weapon, and he was apprehended. Nobody was harmed. It's just, crazy and not surprising, but there are a lot of questions about this guy and just some very interesting things involved in this, okay? Much like the last assassination attempt, where there was some suspicious... It all didn't add up. There was a lot of things that were very peculiar, similar to this one. For instance, how did the guy know exactly where to be when Trump was going to be in his line of sight at that exact time, that exact moment? They're saying the only way that this guy could know, this is from the Secret Service, okay? The Secret Service has said the only way that that guy could have known to be at that point at that time is because Trump never announced when he was going to be golfing. It was never public information that he was even there. So, it had to have been an extremely lucky guess. Very unlikely. It had to have been that... What was the other option? Oh, that he was surveilling Trump? That this guy had been surveilling Trump for some time, knowing that he was going to be there and what time and how, just kind of put pieces together. More likely. Or 3, he had inside information. Now, I'm not putting the tinfoil hat on again. I've already done that this year and on this show. But if you ask me, seems a little suspicious. Especially when the debate happened and Kamala Harris is deemed as the winner of the debate, and that there's all this high praise for Kamala at the debate and all this and that. And then Trump is still leading in the polls. And there's a ton of whether or not you think she won the debate, at least a lot of the shit that I've been seeing, they came down on Trump hard on the cats and dogs thing, only to find out that there are in fact people eating animals in Ohio. There are in fact Haitian immigrants killing animals and eating them. I've heard stories of people just grabbing ducks in the park and chopping their heads off to eat them there. I have heard stories of people eating dogs and cats and things of that nature. So that wasn't the most crazy thing to say. Now, he probably shouldn't have still said it because it made him look crazy, but it wasn't exactly incorrect. But everything that I've been seeing has been pointing out all the deception that Kamala had said, all the flip-flopping about the fracking and about, it's just been I've seen a list of things that she lied about, that she flip-flopped on. It's still been very anti-Kamala. And I think that lends weight to the CIA, the FBI, the administration still feeling the need to eliminate Donald Trump. But who knows? It could still just be this shooter, this gunman, he wasn't a shooter because technically he didn't shoot, but this gunman has explain this to me. The guy has a residency in Hawaii. somehow voted in the Democratic primary in, I believe, Virginia. It was either Virginia or Florida, one of the two, because he had some connection to D.C. and some connection to Florida, obviously, because he was in Florida. The guy is an active Ukraine supporter. He went to Ukraine. There's a lot of suspicious shit about this guy. Apparently, he also was in BlackRock commercials. I have no sources to cite any of this information. This is just things that I've heard. So look it up on your own if you feel the need. But these are just things that I've heard. Suspicious, if you ask me. So, I don't know. You ask yourself, huh? Ask yourself. And then, in addition to this assassination attempt... Oh, before I get to this... One of the craziest things, I can't remember his name. Doolin, I think is his name. He's like a press correspondent. He's very right wing correspondent, but he goes to like the White House and he briefs he questions the the press secretary, who, by the way, absolutely fucking sucks at her job. So she was asked, in response to this second assassination attempt, when will President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and the press secretary decide that it is incorrect and perhaps change their vocabulary from constantly saying that Trump is a threat and that he is like this domestic terrorist, basically all this language stating that Trump is this vile human being, this villain, this antichrist. It's going to galvanize people into continuing to try to assassinate him. And when asked this question, the Secretary of State closed her folder and said, "All right, have a good day. I'll talk to you all tomorrow." Said nothing about it. And then the next day, proceeded to call him a threat. So, they're basically admitting that the language they're using is encouraging people to commit violence onto Trump, and they aren't changing their tone. They're going to continue to say this stuff, hoping that somebody does do this. And it's still so crazy to me that people are upset that he wasn't murdered. Calling for the murder of someone. And these are supposed to be the people that are against guns and against violence. And yet, they support all the wars and violence onto their opponents. Funny how that works. Hypocrisy! Oh, yes, but the other thing I was going to say. In addition to the assassination attempt, the Trump campaign has been hacked by Iranian militants. And information that was hacked from the Trump campaign has been given to the Biden-Harris campaign, or the Harris campaign, which would indicate election fraud. Similar to how the Russia stuff was going on. Similar to how the left just hammered home this whole thing about how Russia was included with Trump, and now they're in cahoots with Iran, who has always been considered an enemy country. Interesting how the tables do turn. Is it not? I mean, what... And to what effect? Like, what... Okay, so what's the play here? Why is Iran siding with the Harris campaign? Is Iran not against Israel? Am I incorrect in that notion that Iran and Israel are enemies? Because the last I checked, Kamala Harris and the Democrats were on the side of Israel. Maybe they've changed their tune. How is that going to look optically to Israel if this is the case? Now, I could just be completely talking out of my ass when it comes to who's in favor with who, and, you know, like, as far as the Iran and Israel thing goes. I'm not completely well educated on all that, but from what I understand, they are enemies. It seems to be the revolving door of war that's keeping that going. But this would indicate election fraud if this is the case. If the Harris campaign accepted stolen information from an enemy country, that is not only treason, but election fraud. So let's see how this all plays out, too. Moving on. Interesting story that I had heard in the news. A employee at a Tucson, I believe it was Tucson, Arizona. An employee at a Tucson, Arizona Wells Fargo was found deceased at her desk or at her cubicle. I don't know if she was in an office or at a desk or whatever, you know, at a cubicle. I'm not sure how the office setup was. But regardless, she was found dead at her desk. Apparently died of a heart attack or some kind of just natural cause, I suppose. She was like 60 years old, so you know that's still not that old to be, you know, just croaking at your desk. But it sounds to be that it was of natural causes. Now, that doesn't seem like it would be much of a story. On top of, you know, just from the basic information I just gave you. However, it is interesting to note she had been dead for 4 days. Let's just take a moment. Let's take a moment to really let that sink in for you guys. This woman went to work, died, which, by the way, worst way to go. The last thing that if I'm gonna die, I don't want the last thing that I'm doing is punching into a clock, like punching a clock. That's not what I want. I don't want to be at work fucking just slaving away. I'd rather die doing something I enjoy or something fun. No, you got to spend your last moments at work. That sucks. So that's already just a bummer in itself. And then she wasn't found for 4 days. Now, let's just play devil's advocate here and say she died on a Friday. Okay? Let's say she died late on a Friday. So, as people are clocking out, they're heading off for the weekend. This lady dies just before clock out. Nobody seems to notice her. So, naturally, she would be sitting there for the full weekend. Well, that's only 2 days. Now let's play devil's advocate even further and assume it was over the Labor Day weekend. So people don't come into work on Monday. Well, that's 3 days. Everybody comes into work on Tuesday and still doesn't notice that she's not there? Still doesn't notice. First, like, doesn't even inquire where she might be. She's 60, so we can maybe assume that her family, she doesn't like live with anybody. If she had kids, maybe they aren't in constant contact. You know, that the fact that people weren't searching for this woman doesn't necessarily surprise me, or it doesn't seem odd that wouldn't happen. It does seem a bit odd that her work wouldn't be like, where's Diane today? What's that? Like, I haven't seen her. Now, and again, we're assuming she didn't die on a Monday. I don't know exactly what day she died on. We're assuming she didn't die on a Monday, and that she wasn't just there for 4 days during the work week. Like, the way I described it is that the office was empty for 3 days. And then on the 4th day, everyone came to work and still didn't notice her. Even more disturbing if she does work at a cubicle. Like, people weren't just walking around and, like, seeing her slumped over her desk. Oh, Diane's taking a nap today. But the biggest but of them all? How could you not smell her? How? Like, 4 days? I mean, I'm pretty sure a body starts bloating and decaying after, like, 48 hours, maybe even less. Like, she would have been stinking to high heaven. So either the office is just disgusting. Maybe somebody came in and had some Indian food that day and it just covered up the stink of death. But odds are that wasn't the case, and they just... How do you not find a dead body for 4 days in your workspace? At your work? So, of course, naturally, there's this whole... there's this big investigation, I guess. I don't know. It's probably an internal investigation. Like, how did nobody figure this out? All the employees were disturbed as fuck, as they should be. They should be disturbed at themselves. Why weren't you curious where she was? Why didn't you inquire for her whereabouts? And in addition, what's wrong with your nose? What? That's the thing I just cannot get past is how could you not smell her? Like, the smell of death is very distinct because it very distincts. So I'm just and for any of the managers or anybody around in that for that to not have noticed or been like, she hasn't been getting her work done lately, or we haven't seen her at the lunch table. And the odds are Wells Fargo just probably replaced her immediately, or I mean, how do you work at that place anymore? Lucas, chime in on this. How do you feel about that, Lucas? Wells Fargo, that's where you work, my friend. My buddy, my drummer Lucas, watches this show very often. I'm curious to know what his feelings on his employer at the Tucson, Arizona branch not noticing one of their employees dead after 4 days. Lucas, if you croaked at work and weren't found for 4 days, don't you think you'd be a little bit disappointed in your fellow coworkers and your bosses? Or would it surprise you? Who knows? Like, maybe it's just not that surprising at all that this happened to a longtime Wells Fargo employee. I don't know the inner workings of Wells Fargo. I don't know how things operate. But I'll tell you what, if Lucas went missing for 4 days, I'd sure as fuck notice. Clearly quicker than Anybody working at the Tucson, Arizona Wells Fargo noticed. Oh, lordy. I hope if I die at my work, people notice. Mostly because I'm in an open area with a bunch of people walking around. But hopefully I just don't die at work, because, God, that would just be terrible. That would just absolutely suck. Poor, like, R.I.P. R.I.P. to her. Hopefully she got that, hopefully she got her work done that day, though. Just for Wells Fargo's sake. Did you also hear about this pilot that was high on mushrooms and tried to take the plane down? Now, as far as I understand, this happened a while ago, but he's just now, like, I think he just faced his charges or something like that. Guess what? Dude's not in jail. So this guy was taking mushrooms because he was depressed about one of his friends dying or something like that. He was dealing with some shit. And he wasn't even flying the plane. He was, like, just catching a flight with the plane. And I guess in scenarios like that, there's, like, an extra seat in the cockpit, if you're a pilot, where you can just kind of hop on board and take the flight with them, or something like that. Well, this dude was tripping out on mushrooms and hit the button that shuts the engines down because... Well, he didn't hit the button, but he was attempting to. He was stopped, but it's like, and he said it was because he was having this trip. He felt like nothing was real, and the only way to get out of that headspace was to hit that button, and that was going to wake him up, or that was going to, like, whatever. That technically should be considered, like, I don't know how big this plane was, but 100, let's say 100 attempted murder charges. You just tried to take the whole plane down. That's got to be a terrorist act, no? Like, not only is that 100 plus charges of attempted murder, but I'm pretty sure if you tamper with an airplane, especially nowadays, especially after 9/11, that's considered a terrorist act, regardless of what drugs you were on, whatever psychedelics you were using. Now the dude, while not being in jail, is, well, naturally he was fired. Thank God. We don't need that guy flying the planes. But he's going around doing seminars talking about pilots' mental health, which, granted, very important. I would like for my pilots to be mentally stable. I would like my pilots to not want to nosedive us into the ocean. So, there is some good, I suppose, that came out of this. However, I think that guy needs to be punished for this. Like, yeah, he's embarrassed and whatever. What if he had succeeded? Like, if anything, he should never be allowed to fly again. That should be I think that's a reasonable punishment. If they're going to put him in jail, he should definitely never be allowed to fly again. Especially when he knows where the kill switch is. Dude, I remember seeing this story about some pilot that one of the pilots went to the bathroom and then the other pilot locked the cockpit door and flew the plane into the side of a mountain because he was suicidal and he decided to take the entire plane with him. That is absolutely terrifying. I mean, I feel like the other pilot should be able to somehow access the cockpit no matter what. If the door is locked from the outside or from the inside, he should have some kind of a master key or some kind of, like, emergency way of opening that door. Yeah, terrifying. Makes you not want to fly very much. Like, when you talk about the absolute decline in mental health in this country, and then you add the word pilot to that, Yeah. That's a that's a little bit disturbing. Woo! So, yeah. I just thought that was a very intriguing, interesting story that was... I do a lot of flying these days, and that's not the story you want to hear when you're hopping on a plane. Alright, let's get ready to wrap this bad boy up. Before we go, there's one last thing I want to talk to you guys about. A little bit of a random topic here, but it is relevant to me as of late. The other night, I was perusing through the different subscription, Netflix, Hulu, HBO. I'm flipping through all these, trying to find something to watch. Thought about starting to watch some horror movies, but just wasn't in the mood that night, so decided I'd just try and find something fun. And actually, before that, I had watched the Digimon movie, because back in the day I was a huge Digimon fan, and just was, I don't think it stands the test of time quite like a Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z. Like, those seem to stand the test of time as an adult. Digimon, not so much. Still, it was a little nostalgic blast from the past. So I think after watching that, I was in a bit of a nostalgic mood. Digimon, digital monsters, Digimon are the champions. So I decided to dive even further down a nostalgic rabbit hole, which brought me to the original live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. And I haven't seen those in quite a while. I mean, I've probably seen them within the last 5 years or so, maybe 6 years, somewhere in there. But every now and again, you need a refresher, and you need to look at... It's fun to watch an old movie through grown eyes, through wiser eyes, because you see things a little differently. Especially from a kid to an adult, you see things very differently. I watched the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoons. I watched, I saw the new live action one. I just, not too long ago, watched the Seth Rogen produced Ninja Turtle movie. I can't remember the name of it, honestly, but it was actually really good. The one with kind of the Spider-Verse artwork. It was really good. I was fairly impressed with that. But nothing, and I mean nothing, will maybe ever be better than that original live-action series. Taking out the third movie, because the third movie is not great, but the first two movies are so well done. The puppeteering of the costumes, fantastic. I love that they made them all look different. They actually gave them all their personalities. Just great character building in these movies. And here's the best part. I miss when movies used to be an hour and a half. It got to the point you didn't feel like you were, skipped out on anything. You didn't feel like there was anything really missing from the story. When you just got to the point of the story. In the first Ninja Turtles movie, okay? In the first 5 minutes, it perfectly lays out the story. They're talking about the Foot Clan, how there's an increased crime wave in New York City. The first main character you meet is April O'Neil. She's reporting on this story about this crime wave that's going on. And as she's leaving the news station, she gets attacked. And who comes to her rescue? The Ninja Turtles. And it's all in darkness. It's kind of quick. They beat the shit out of these guys. And then the title cards come up as you're seeing them walk through the sewer. And you're immediately introduced to the Turtles. You don't need all this exposition. You don't need the origin story. Later in the movie, Master Splinter explains to April after she meets them for the first time. He just tells a quick story about how they came to be, and then even later on, he tells the story of who Shredder is and how he knows Shredder and his connection to all of it. It's like, that's all you need. You just need a quick story. And it was easy enough for him to introduce the Turtles with their names. For anybody who didn't know going into the movie, you know what I'm saying? It's perfect. Like, the character building, the interactions between the characters, the storyline itself, simple. You get a lot of action going on. There's a lot of fighting. It's Casey Jones. That actor that plays Casey Jones is so goddamn good. My favorite line in the movie, because it's just, it would go over your head if you were a kid 10 times out of 10. They're down in the sewer. Casey Jones is getting a little antsy. And Donatello looks at him and goes, "You're a claustrophobic." And Casey Jones looks at him and says, "You want to get punched in the mouth? I never even looked at another dude before." Hilarious. Would have never got that joke until I was an adult. He was offended because they were thinking he was doing some Diddy stuff. They thought he was going to freak-off parties at Diddy's house. No, he didn't understand what claustrophobic meant. Hilarious. And the second movie, Casey Jones isn't in it, but the actress who played April O'Neil's in it. And you get the whole origin of the ooze. You get the story of how, they start to come to realize their creation and how they became to be. And they struggle with their identity and all this stuff. Just those old school movies. And like I said, I love when it can be an hour and a half long. You get to the point. You get action here. You get humor here. It's just boom, boom, boom. You don't need all this fucking extra storytelling bullshit. It's perfectly told as it is. It's amazing. So, just a huge shout out to the old school Ninja Turtle movies. Love them. The new ones can kick rocks. You have this great technology now that can do all this stuff. Like, that's the other thing about those original movies. They perfectly blend the cartoon side and the realism side. Where the newer ones, I feel like they tend to try and lean more into the realism of it. We're talking about mutant turtles, dude. How can we, how can you even remotely try and make that? You gotta blend the worlds. You can't make that realistic. And like I said, with all this technology, with all CGI and all that stuff, and they still made it look like dog shit. Though the Michael Bay one, when you got a guy like Michael Bay directing it, like, that's not what you need. You know what I mean? Like, it works for Transformers. Doesn't work for Ninja Turtles, man. So, I just love. Nothing's gonna beat that old school one. You're talking Jim Henson puppeteering at its finest. And it still stands the test of time. So, just shout out to those movies, man. Love the Ninja Turtles, one of my all-time favorite cartoons as a kid. And I'll tell this story again just because. I've told this story before. But just to give you a little insight on how much I, in fact, loved the Turtles. When I was a kid, I had all the Ninja Turtle action figures. The old school ones. The originals. If I still had those motherfuckers to this day, they would be worth some real money. But I'm a kid. And I'm thinking, God, it'd be cool if these guys, like, if I could turn them into the real-life Ninja Turtles. Well, I had noticed in my sister's bathroom, there was a giant tub of ooze. It looked like ooze. It was this green gelatin. So I start scooping this gelatin out and smearing it all over my Ninja Turtle toys. And I left them sit there, and I waited for them to grow. And then I was like, maybe they don't like to be watched while they transform into the real Ninja Turtles. So I left for a while. Forgot I had left them there. And later on, my sister comes running out. Who the fuck, who covered these toys in my hair gel? The mind of a child. So, but yeah, shout out to Ninja Turtles. Folks, that is it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. Again, like, share, subscribe, follow on all platforms. Always appreciate that. Roll with the punches, guys. The punches may keep coming. And I'm going to be dealing with some punches for a while when it comes to football. But you just got to roll with it, man. Eventually, you will get that counter punch. And you'll be able to keep that head held high. So, roll with those punches, guys. That's all you can do. Most importantly, though, don't forget, life's a garden. Dig it.
Just gotta keep on keeping on.
Why you talking to microphone? I got a back right here. Back of my back of my back of my back of my back of my
Got it.
back of my 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 Life's a garden.